I used to think silence meant peace. Turns out it just means everyone else is talking. The pneumonia hit me in October, not the dramatic kind where you collapse in the street, more like a slow drowning that takes 3 weeks to pull you under. By the time I checked into Mercy General, my lungs sounded like wet gravel in a dryer. The doctor said I'd been walking around with it for at least 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. Typical stubborn idiot, she said. I didn't argue. My wife Helen drove me home after 5 days in the hospital. She kept both hands on the wheel the whole time, eyes straight ahead. We'd been married 23 years. I knew what that look meant. She was already solving problems I didn't know existed yet. You need to rest, she said when we pulled into the driveway. Really rest. No phone calls, no checking the workshop, nothing. I can handle the business paperwork, I said. It's just sitting at a desk. David. She put the car in park but didn't turn it off. The engine idled. You can barely make it up the stairs without stopping twice. Let me handle it. That's what I'm here for. I looked at our house. 2-story colonial, white with black shutters, maple tree in the front yard that I'd planted when our son was born. 26 years ago now. The tree was taller than the house. Time moves like that when you're not paying attention. The Feldman contract, I said. It's due Friday. I know where everything is. Helen unbuckled her seatbelt. You showed me the system last year, remember, when you had the kidney stone. I did remember. I'd been in so much pain I couldn't think straight, and Helen had stepped in and handled 3 weeks of invoices and contractor payments without a single mistake. She was better at it than I was, honestly. More organized. She had a mind like a filing cabinet, everything sorted and labeled. The folder's in the safe, I said. Second shelf, blue tabs. I'll find it. She came around and helped me out of the passenger seat. My legs felt like they were made of wet newspaper. Come on. One step at a time. Our daughter Emma's car was in the driveway. Helen must have called her. Emma met us at the door, her face doing that thing where she tries to look concerned but mostly looks annoyed at the inconvenience. She was 24, worked in marketing for some tech startup downtown, still lived in the apartment we'd helped her buy 3 years ago. Dad. She hugged me carefully, like I might break. You look terrible. Thanks, sweetheart. You always know what to say. She means you need to sleep, Helen said. She guided me toward the stairs. Emma took my other arm. Between the two of them, I made it to the bedroom without collapsing. The bed felt like heaven. Helen pulled off my shoes and covered me with the quilt her mother had made. The same quilt that had been on this bed for 2 decades. I could smell lavender detergent and something else, something that reminded me of being young and believing everything would always be exactly this safe. Sleep, Helen said. She kissed my forehead. I'll wake you for dinner. I closed my eyes. Through the bedroom door, I could hear them talking in low voices. Emma asking questions, Helen answering in that calm, capable tone she used when managing anything from a broken dishwasher to a family crisis. I'd always loved that about her. Nothing rattled Helen. She could handle anything. I slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, the house was quiet. Morning light came through the curtains at an angle that meant it was late, maybe 10 or 11. My chest still ached, but the fog in my head had cleared a little. I could breathe without feeling like I was sucking air through a wet towel. I made it downstairs one slow step at a time, holding the banister like an old man. The kitchen smelled like coffee. Helen sat at the table with her laptop open and papers spread across the surface. She changed into her work clothes, gray slacks, and a white blouse. Reading glasses perched on her nose. Morning, she said without looking up. There's oatmeal on the stove. Eat something before you take your medication. I poured coffee first. The oatmeal was exactly how I liked it, not too thick, with cinnamon and brown sugar already mixed in. I sat down across from her and watched her work. She'd always been beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with trying. Dark hair pulled back, minimal makeup, that focused expression she got when solving a problem. What's all this? I asked. Feldman contract, some invoices, the quarterly tax estimates. She made a note on a yellow legal pad. I called Tom Feldman yesterday. He's fine with a 1-week extension. I explained you were recovering. You didn't have to do that. I did, actually. You were sleeping. Someone had to. She flipped a page. The Bennett property needs attention. The tenants called about the water heater. I scheduled a repair for tomorrow. They're sending the invoice to the business account. I ate my oatmeal and let her talk. The medication made everything feel slightly distant, like I was watching my life through clean glass. Helen managed the details with the same precision she brought to everything. Doctor's appointments, car maintenance, the endless admin that came with owning 3 rental properties and a small construction business. "Where's the folder?" I asked. "The one from the safe." "In the office. I'll show you later." She closed her laptop. "Right now, you need to eat and take your pills and go back to bed." "I feel better." She stood up and brought me the pill organizer she'd prepared. "Take these, then sleep more. Doctor said at least 2 weeks of real rest." I took the pills. She was right, of course. My body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. But something about the way she dismissed the question bothered me. Not just a small thing, barely noticeable. Like a door that didn't quite close flush with the frame. My son Ryan showed up that afternoon. I was back in bed, half asleep, when I heard his voice downstairs. Deep and confident, the voice of a man who'd never questioned his place in the world. He'd inherited that from Helen's side of the family. The Prescotts had been in this town for 5 generations. They owned land, had connections, moved through life with the easy assurance of people who'd never had to fight for anything. I heard him talking to Helen, then Emma's voice joined them. A family conference I wasn't invited to. I got up and made it halfway down the stairs before the dizziness hit. I sat on the step and listened. "The paperwork's done," Helen was saying. "I just need to file it." "When?" Ryan asked. "This week. Maybe next. The timing doesn't matter as much as making sure everything's in order first." "What about Dad?" Emma's voice quieter. "What about him? He signed it already. He just doesn't remember." My heart did something funny in my chest. Not a heart attack kind of funny. More like when you're driving and suddenly realize you've missed your exit by 10 miles and have no memory of the road you just traveled. "Are you sure this is the right move?" Ryan again. "I mean, long term?" "It's the only move." Helen's voice had that edge it got when she'd made a decision and wouldn't be argued with. "We're protecting the family. That's what matters." I sat on the step for a long time after they stopped talking. My fever was down, but I felt cold anyway. The kind of cold that starts in your bones and works outward. I didn't ask about the conversation. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until Helen brought up dinner on a tray. Chicken soup and crackers. She sat on the edge of the bed while I ate, telling me about her day, about the weather, about nothing that mattered. "I love you," she said when she took the tray. "Get some rest." I waited until I heard the downstairs TV come on. Then I got up and went to the office. The blue folder wasn't in the safe. The second shelf was empty except for some old tax returns and the deed to our first house. I checked every shelf. Nothing. I went back to bed before she could catch me up. The next morning, I felt almost human. The fog had lifted enough that I could think in straight lines. I took a shower, the first one in a week that didn't leave me gasping. Got dressed in real clothes instead of pajamas. Made it downstairs without holding the railing. Helen was already gone. There was a note on the counter in her neat handwriting. "At the lawyer's office, back by lunch. Rest." The office door was closed. I opened it. The desk was clean, everything organized into neat piles with labeled folders. Helen had always been better at paperwork than me, but something was wrong. The arrangement was too perfect, like someone had gone through and removed anything that didn't fit a specific narrative. I found my business folder in the file cabinet. All the current contracts were there, invoices, insurance documents, everything in order, except the Feldman contract, the one we'd talked about, the one Helen said she'd handled. I called Tom Feldman. "Hey, David," he said. "Helen told me you were sick. You feeling better?" "Getting there. Listen, about the contract extension." "What extension?" "We closed that last week. I sent the final payment to your account Friday." I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat at the desk and tried to remember. The medication had made everything fuzzy, but I'd been clear enough that first day home. Helen had definitely mentioned an extension. She'd said she called him, unless I'd dreamed it, unless the fever had scrambled things. I went through the file cabinet again, slower this time. Every folder, every document, looking for anything that felt wrong. Most of it was standard stuff. Property deeds, mortgage papers, business licenses. Then I found it. A folder I didn't recognize. White with no label. Inside were photocopies of documents I'd signed. Power of attorney forms, property transfer agreements, business partnership modifications, my signature on every page. Dated 3 weeks ago, right before I got sick. I didn't remember signing any of them. I photographed every page with my phone. Then I put the folder back exactly where I'd found it and went to the kitchen, made coffee, sat at the table, tried to think through the medication and exhaustion and the growing sense that I'd been asleep for more than just a few days. Helen came home at noon. She put her purse on the counter and smiled at me. "You're up," she said. "That's good. You're getting your color back. How was the lawyer? Fine, just routine stuff. Estate planning updates. She opened the refrigerator. I'll make lunch. Are you hungry? The Feldman contract? I said. Tom said it closed last week. She didn't miss a beat, just pulled out sandwich fixings and set them on the counter. That's right. I must have misspoken. I meant the Wilson proposal. That's the one he extended. She started slicing tomatoes. Your memory's still fuzzy. That's normal with the medication. What documents were in the blue folder? What blue folder? She said it easily, casually, like I'd asked about the weather. The one I told you about, in the safe. Blue tabs. David. She set down the knife and turned to face me. You're confused. There was no blue folder. I handled the regular business files, that's all. You need to rest more. The doctor said confusion is common with severe pneumonia. I looked at her face. The face I'd loved for 23 years. The face I'd trusted with everything. She believed what she was saying, or she was the best liar I'd ever met. You're right, I said. I'm still foggy. She made lunch. We ate together. She talked about her morning, about errands she needed to run, about Emma's new promotion at work. Normal conversation, normal life. I smiled and nodded and felt something inside me lock into place. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Helen and listened to her breathe. Even peaceful. The breathing of someone with a clear conscience. At 3 a.m, I got up and went back to the office. This time I went through everything, every drawer, every file, every folder. I took pictures of anything that looked important. Documents with my signature, property records, business agreements. I found more copies of the forms in the white folder, multiple versions, slightly different, all with my signature, all dated during the time I was sick. One of them transferred primary ownership of our rental properties to a family trust, managed by Helen, with Ryan and Emma as beneficiaries. Another one modified my construction business, added Helen as a full partner with equal decision-making authority. A third one granted Helen power of attorney over all financial and medical decisions. I'd signed them all, apparently. My signature looked right. Not forged, just mine. I didn't remember signing any of them. I put everything back carefully and went to bed. Helen stirred when I slid under the covers. Can't sleep? She murmured. Just restless, I said. She reached over and squeezed my hand. It'll get better. You just need time. I squeezed back. You're right. In the morning, I asked to see the folder again, the one with the documents. What documents? Helen was getting ready for work. She stood at the bathroom mirror, putting on earrings. The power of attorney forms, the property transfers, the ones I signed. She met my eyes in the mirror. David, I don't know what you're talking about. You didn't sign anything like that. Where are you getting this from? I saw them. Yesterday, in the file cabinet. You saw business documents, normal stuff. Nothing about power of attorney. She turned to face me. Honey, I'm worried about you. You're having trouble separating dreams from reality. That's a serious side effect. I think we need to call the doctor. I'm not confused. You are. You're very sick. The infection is still in your system. She put a hand on my cheek. I'm going to make an appointment. Don't argue with me on this. She called the doctor from the car. I heard her voice through the bedroom window. Concerned wife? Confused husband? Possible neurological effects from the infection. I sat on the bed and looked at my phone. The photos were still there, clear as day. Helen thought I was crazy, or she wanted everyone else to think I was crazy. Either way, I needed to figure out which before I said anything else. I spent the day pretending to rest. Helen checked on me every hour, bringing water and medication and magazines I didn't read, being the perfect caretaker. Ryan stopped by in the evening. He sat in the chair next to the bed like he was visiting someone in hospice. Mom says you're having some confusion, he said. Is that what she told you? She's worried. We all are. He leaned forward. Dad, if you're not remembering things, that's serious. You need to be honest with the doctors. I remember fine. Do you? He pulled out his phone. Mom says you've been asking about documents that don't exist, saying you signed things you didn't sign. That sounds like confusion to me. I looked at my son. He had Helen's eyes. That calm, reasonable expression that made you feel like you were the one being unreasonable just for asking questions. What documents did I sign? I asked. The normal stuff. Business paperwork. Nothing unusual. He put his phone away. Look, I know this is scary. Being sick, feeling like your mind isn't working right. But you have to trust us. We're trying to help. I trust you. I lied. He seemed satisfied with that. Stayed for another 20 minutes making small talk before leaving. I heard him talking to Helen downstairs. Low voices, concerned family members discussing the sick patriarch. I used to think I knew my family. Turns out I just knew the version they showed me. The doctor's appointment was scheduled for Friday, 3 days away. Helen told me this cheerfully over breakfast, like it was good news. Dr. Patterson wants to run some cognitive tests, she said, just to rule out any neurological issues. It's standard procedure. I don't need cognitive tests. Humor me, she poured more coffee. If everything comes back normal, great. But if there's something wrong, we need to know, for your sake. I drank my coffee and watched her. She was handling this beautifully. Concerned, but not panicked. Proactive, but not overbearing. If I tried to fight her on this, I'd look paranoid. Unstable. Exactly what she was already suggesting I might be. Smart woman, my wife. I'd always known that. Just never considered what it would be like to be on the wrong side of that intelligence. That afternoon, while Helen was out getting groceries, I called my lawyer, Eric Moss. We'd gone to high school together. He'd handled the purchase of all 3 rental properties. David, how are you feeling? Better. Listen, I need you to check something for me. Those property transfers I signed last month. Can you send me copies? Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Eric? David, I can't discuss this. Why not? I signed them. I just need copies for my records. I really can't. His voice had changed. Professional distance instead of old friend warmth. You should talk to Helen about this. I'm talking to you. You're my lawyer. Actually, I'm not. Not anymore. Helen retained me separately for the trust documents. I suggested she do that to avoid any conflict of interest. My hand tightened on the phone. What conflict of interest? I can't discuss the details. Attorney-client privilege. I'm sorry. He sounded genuinely apologetic. Talk to Helen. She can explain everything better than I can. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in the office, staring at my phone. Eric had been my lawyer for 15 years. Now he was Helen's lawyer. And he couldn't talk to me about documents I'd allegedly signed. The pieces were forming a picture. I didn't like what I was seeing. Helen came home with groceries. I helped her put them away. We moved around the kitchen like we had for 23 years. Easy choreography. Her handing me items, me finding the right shelf. Normal married life. Eric called, she said. He said you phoned him today. Just checking on some paperwork. He told me you seemed confused about the timeline. She closed the refrigerator. David, this is exactly what I'm worried about. You're not remembering things correctly. The property transfers happened before you got sick. You signed them in September. I don't remember September. That's my point. She took my hands. Something's not right. Your memory has gaps, big ones. We need to figure out why. Show me the documents. I already told you. Show me. She pulled her hands back. Something flickered in her eyes. Just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by concern again. I don't have them here. They're in the safe deposit box at the bank. That's where important documents belong. Let's go get them. The bank's closed, and you're not well enough for an outing like that. She picked up her purse. I have book club tonight. Emma's going to stay with you. She'll be here in an hour. There's lasagna in the fridge for dinner. She left before I could argue. I heard her car pull out of the driveway, then silence. I went back to the office and looked through the files again. Everything I'd photographed was still there, but now I noticed something else. The dates on the forms weren't consistent. Some said September, others said October, different dates on different copies of what were supposedly the same documents. Either someone was very sloppy, or multiple versions existed for a reason. Emma showed up at 6. She had a bag from the Italian place downtown, real lasagna, not Helen's refrigerated version. Mom said you might be confused tonight, she said. She unpacked the food in the kitchen. How are you feeling? Clear-headed. That's good. She didn't look at me when she said it. Let's eat. We sat at the table. She talked about work, some campaign they were launching, social media metrics, engagement rates. I half listened and watched her face. She had Helen's features but my coloring. Light brown hair, hazel eyes. She'd been a beautiful kid. Now she was a beautiful young woman who looked everywhere but at her father. What do you know? I asked. About what? About the documents, the property transfers, the trust. She put down her fork. Dad, I don't know anything about that stuff. Mom handles the financial things. But you know something. I heard you talking with her and Ryan last week. You were delirious last week. You probably dreamed it. Emma, look at me. She did. Those hazel eyes held something I'd never seen before. Pity. Mom's trying to protect you, she said quietly. That's all I know. She thinks you are not capable of managing everything anymore, that you need help. She told you that? She's worried. We all are. You're acting paranoid, asking about things that don't make sense. Maybe you do need help. There's no shame in that. I looked at my daughter and realized she believed it. Helen had sold her the story so completely that Emma genuinely thought her father was losing his mind. You're right, I said. Maybe I do need help. She looked relieved. We finished dinner. She stayed until 9, then kissed my cheek and left. I locked the door behind her and stood in the dark hallway. The house was quiet. My house. The one I'd paid for with 26 years of construction work. The one I'd maintained and upgraded and poured money into so my family would always be comfortable. According to those documents, I wasn't sure it was mine anymore. I went upstairs and lay on the bed. No TV, no lights, just darkness and the sound of my own breathing. I used to think marriage meant partnership. Turns out sometimes it just means someone's been studying your weak points for 2 decades, waiting for the right moment to exploit them. Helen came home at 11. She checked on me like she always did, kissed my forehead, whispered that she loved me. I kept my eyes closed and let her believe I was asleep. Tomorrow I'd start figuring out how to fix this. Tonight I'd just lie here and mourn the person I'd thought my wife was. The end of innocence doesn't come with trumpets. It comes with a forged signature and a smile. The next morning I told Helen I felt ready to go back to work. Not full days, just a few hours to check on the crews, ease back into things. She didn't like it. I could see the calculation behind her eyes while she poured coffee. Should she fight this or let me think I had autonomy? Maybe next week, she said. You're still weak. I'm going crazy sitting in this house. That's the frustration talking. The doctor said at least 2 weeks of complete rest. The doctor also said I could do light activity if I felt up to it. I hadn't talked to the doctor, but Helen didn't know that. I'll just go to the office site, check inventory, nothing strenuous. She set down the coffee pot harder than necessary. Fine, but I'm driving you, and you're home by noon. Non-negotiable. Deal. She drove me to the Bennett Avenue site where my crew was framing a 2-story addition. Danny Torres, my foreman, looked surprised to see me climbing out of Helen's Volvo. Boss, you look like hell. Feel like it too, but I'm going stir-crazy. I turned to Helen. I'll call when I'm ready. She hesitated. I could see her trying to decide if she should insist on staying. But Danny was already walking over, asking about the build schedule, pulling me into work conversation. Helen got back in the car. Noon, she said. I mean it. I waved her off, watched her drive away. Then I turned to Danny. I need a favor. Name it. Drive me to the county records office. Tell Helen I left my phone in your truck if she calls looking for me. Danny frowned. What's going on? I'm not sure yet. That's why I need to check records. He looked at the half-finished edition, then back at me. Danny had worked for me for 12 years. We'd been through bad weather, bad clients, and one very bad injury when a scaffolding collapsed. He knew when to ask questions and when to just drive. Come on, he said. The county records office sat in a brick building that smelled like old paper and defeated ambitions. The clerk was a woman in her 50s with cat-eye glasses and a name tag that said Margaret. I need copies of recent property filings, I said. Anything in the last 3 months under David Brenner or Helen Brenner. Margaret took my ID and typed slowly. The computer was older than Emma. Finally, she looked up. 6 filings. 3 property transfers, 2 business documents, 1 trust establishment. Which ones do you want? All of them. That'll be $60. I paid. She printed everything and slid it across the counter in a manila envelope. I didn't open it until I was back in Danny's truck. The property transfers were there, all 3 rental properties. Signed over to the Brenner Family Trust. Dated September 15th. My signature looked perfect, except I'd been in Milwaukee on September 15th. 3-day job consulting on a commercial build. I had hotel receipts, pictures on my phone, text messages with the client that proved I was 600 miles away when I allegedly signed these documents. You okay? Danny asked. No. I kept reading. The business documents changed the LLC structure, made Helen an equal partner with full management authority. Dated September 22nd. I'd been in bed with what I thought was a bad cold that day. Helen had brought me soup and cold medicine and let me sleep for 14 hours. The trust document was the masterpiece. It placed all family assets under Helen's control with Ryan and Emma as beneficiaries. No oversight. No requirement to consult anyone. Dated October 1st. The day before I checked into the hospital. My signature was on every page, but I hadn't signed any of them. I need you to look at something, I said. I showed Danny the signatures. He studied them carefully. He'd seen me sign hundreds of documents over the years. Contracts, invoices, permits. That's your signature, he said finally. I mean, it looks exactly like it. Are you saying you didn't sign these? I was in Milwaukee on this date. You drove me to the airport yourself. September 15th. Yeah, I remember. You were gone 3 days. He looked at the signatures again. So someone forged them? That's what you're saying? I don't know what I'm saying yet. Danny handed back the papers. What are you going to do? Good question. Going to the police meant accusing my wife of fraud, which would destroy the family regardless of what was true. And without proof that I didn't sign them, it would be my word against perfect signatures and a wife who'd spent weeks establishing a narrative of her husband's confusion. Can you tell anyone about this? I asked. Tell anyone what? I didn't see anything. Danny started the truck. You want to go back to the site or somewhere else? Somewhere else. He drove without asking where. Ended up at a diner off Highway 60. We sat in a booth by the window. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and stared at the manila envelope. How long have you been married? Danny asked. 23 years? Kids? 2. Both adults now. He nodded slowly. My ex-wife cleaned me out in the divorce. Took the house, the boat, half my business, but at least she did it legally. After we split, this is different. This is theft. Yeah, but smart theft. Legal theft. The kind that's hard to prove. He drank his coffee. You need a lawyer, not the one you have now. Someone who doesn't know your wife. He was right. Eric was compromised. Anyone in town who knew the family would be compromised. The Prescotts had roots here, connections. Helen could activate an entire network with a few phone calls. I know a guy, Danny said. Used to work construction before he went to law school. Handles criminal defense mostly, but he knows real estate fraud. Doesn't scare easy. Can you call him? From a payphone. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. No cell records. We found a gas station with an ancient payphone bolted to the outside wall. Danny made the call while I stood there feeling like I'd stepped into a crime drama. Except this was my life, my marriage, my family. Tomorrow morning, Danny said when he hung up. 9 a.m. His office is in Riverside, about 40 minutes from here. Helen will know something's up if I disappear for half a day. Tell her you're meeting with a potential client. Commercial build, needs specs and an estimate. I'll back you up if she asks. I looked at my old friend. Why are you helping me? Because I've known you 12 years, and you've never been anything but straight with me. And because I've seen what happens when people don't stand up for themselves. He pulled out his truck keys. Come on, let's get you back before your wife sends out a search party. He dropped me at the Bennett Avenue site at 11:45. Helen showed up 15 minutes later. I was standing by Danny's truck reviewing a blueprint when she pulled up. How do you feel? She asked. Tired but good. It felt normal to be working again. You're pale. We should get you home. We drove in silence. Helen kept glancing at me like I might confess something. I have a meeting tomorrow, I said. Potential client. Commercial build in Riverside. You're not ready for that yet? It's just a meeting. I'll sit in a conference room for an hour and look at plans. I can handle that. She pulled into our driveway. I'll come with you. Helen? I'll drive. You can rest in the car if you get tired. I want to make sure you don't overdo it. I looked at her perfect profile, the woman I'd loved for 23 years, the woman who was very possibly destroying me. Sure, I said. That would be great. That night I lay in bed and planned. If Helen came with me tomorrow, I'd have to cancel the lawyer meeting, which meant finding another way to meet with him, which meant more lies, more sneaking around in my own life. Or I could tell the truth, confront Helen with everything, demand explanations, risk her shutting down completely and accelerating whatever plan she had in motion. Neither option was good. I got up at 2 a.m. and went to the office, pulled up our bank statements online, started going through everything from the last 6 months. The accounts looked normal at first. Then I noticed the pattern. Small transfers. 500 here, 2,000 there, always to accounts I didn't recognize. They added up to nearly $40,000 over 4 months. I took screenshots. Then I checked the credit cards. Helen had opened 3 new cards in my name, all maxed out. Nearly $60,000 in debt I didn't know existed. The charges were subtle, cash advances, wire transfers, some payments to what looked like law firms and financial consultants, building a paper trail that made me look financially unstable, or maybe just funding whatever she was planning. I took more screenshots. Then I cleared the browser history and went back to bed. Helen was sleeping peacefully. She'd always been a good sleeper, never tossed or turned or had nightmares. Clear conscience or just good genetics. I watched her face in the darkness, tried to remember the exact moment I'd stopped knowing who she was. But there was no single moment. Just a slow realization that the person next to me might be a stranger. Morning came too fast. Helen made breakfast, eggs and toast. We ate together like we always had. She talked about her plans for the day, garden club meeting, dry cleaning pickup, normal life. "What time is your meeting?" she asked. 10. We should leave by 9:15. "I'll be ready." At 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Danny. "Hey boss, we got a problem at the Harrison site. Electrical inspector is here and he's saying the panel box is wrong. I need you to talk to him or we're going to fail inspection." Perfect timing. I didn't even have to prompt him. "Put him on," I said. Then to Helen. "Work emergency. This might take a while." The imaginary inspector and I had a long discussion about code requirements. Helen listened from the kitchen, her face tight. Finally, I hung up. "I have to go to Harrison. The inspector's going to shut us down if I don't handle this personally." "What about your meeting?" "I'll have to reschedule. This can't wait. We'll lose 2 days of work if we fail inspection." She didn't argue, just grabbed her purse. "I'll drive you to Harrison, then we'll deal with the meeting." "Helen, you don't need to—" "I'm driving." And we got in the car. She pulled out of the driveway and headed toward the Harrison site. I called Danny. "We're on our way. Keep the inspector there." "What inspector?" Danny said. "The one who's giving you problems. Just keep him occupied until we arrive." "Boss, there's no—" I hung up. Helen glanced at me. "You okay?" "Fine, just frustrated. This is going to eat up the whole morning." We got to Harrison at 9:45. Danny was standing in the driveway looking confused. No inspector, because there was no inspector. Helen pulled up next to him. I got out. "Where is he?" I asked Danny. "Where's who?" "The inspector. You called about the panel box." "No, I didn't. I've been here since 7. No inspector showed up." I pulled out my phone, showed him the call log. "You called me at 9. We just talked for 10 minutes?" Danny looked at Helen, then at me, then back at his phone. "Boss, I didn't call you. My last outgoing call was at 7:30 to the lumberyard." The silence lasted too long. Helen's face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, then something I'd never seen before: calculation. "David," she said carefully, "did you take your morning medication?" "Yes. All of it. The antibiotics and the—" "Yes, Helen, I took everything." She turned to Danny. "Has he seemed confused this morning?" "Ma'am, I haven't seen him since yesterday." "But he was here, earlier. You said you were here since 7. "I was. He wasn't." Helen looked at me. "David, you said you got a call from Danny about an inspector. You said we had to rush over here, but Danny didn't call you, and there's no inspector." "I got a call. I showed you the phone log." "Show me again." I pulled out my phone. The call log showed Danny's number, 9 a.m., 10-minute duration, except when I pulled up Danny's actual number in my contacts, the digits were different. Close, but off by 2 numbers. Someone had spoofed Danny's number, called me at exactly the right time to derail my lawyer meeting. "You see," Helen said, "the numbers are different. Someone called pretending to be Danny. You didn't notice because you're not thinking clearly." Danny shifted uncomfortably. Helen looked like I'd slapped her. "David, please, listen to yourself. You think someone is calling you pretending to be your foreman? Why would anyone do that?" "To make me look crazy." "You're doing that on your own." She said it gently, like breaking bad news. "This is exactly what I've been worried about. The confusion, the paranoia. We need to go home and call Dr. Patterson." I looked at Danny. He looked back at me with an expression that said he wanted to help but had no idea how. "I'll drive boss home," Danny said. "You probably have things to do, Mrs. Brenner. I can make sure he gets there safe." "I'll take him. He's my husband." "With respect, ma'am, he seems pretty upset right now. Maybe it's better if I do it. He trusts me. I can calm him down." Helen hesitated. This wasn't part of her plan. But she was smart enough to know when pushing harder would backfire. "Fine. Take him home. Make sure he rests. I'll be there in an hour." She got in her car and drove away. I stood in Danny's driveway, shaking. "That call was real," I said. "I didn't imagine it." "I believe you. But someone's playing games. And doing a damn good job of it." Danny pulled out his phone. "The lawyer's still available. We can make it if we leave now." Helen will know I'm not home in an hour. So? You're a grown man. You can go wherever you want. Stop letting her control the narrative. He was right. I was so deep in Helen's version of reality that I'd started accepting it as real. Let's go, I said. The lawyer's office was in a converted warehouse in Riverside. Martin Keller had his name on a frosted glass door on the 3rd floor. Inside, the space was all exposed brick and industrial lighting. A paralegal who looked barely old enough to drink showed us to a conference room. Keller came in 5 minutes later. He was maybe 50, lean and weathered, like he'd spent his life outdoors before trading it for law school. Handshake like a vice grip. "Danny says you have a problem," he said. "Let's see it." I laid out everything, the documents, the signatures, the timeline that proved I couldn't have signed them, the bank transfers, the credit cards, Helen's story about my confusion, the spoofed phone call that morning. Keller went through it all methodically, taking notes, asking questions, his face never changed expression. "This is good work," he said finally. "Professional. Whoever planned this knew what they were doing." "Can I prove I didn't sign those documents?" "Maybe. The timeline is solid. The Milwaukee trip gives you an alibi for at least one of the signatures. But the others are trickier. You were home, you were sick. Memory gets fuzzy when you're ill. A lawyer could argue you signed them and forgot. But I didn't. I believe you. A jury might not. Especially if your wife testifies about your confusion. If she's got witnesses corroborating that you were disoriented, having memory problems, acting erratically." He tapped the phone call transcript. "Like this morning. You ran across town chasing a fake inspector. From the outside, that looks like paranoid behavior. Because someone set me up to look paranoid. Again, I believe you, but proving it is another matter." Keller leaned back. "Here's what we know for certain. The documents are filed. They're legal unless we can prove fraud. Your wife has positioned herself as the concerned caregiver dealing with a declining spouse. You have circumstantial evidence of forgery, but no smoking gun." "Not necessarily, but you need to be smart. Stop reacting. Start planning." He pulled out a legal pad. "First, we establish your competence. I'm going to refer you to a neurologist. Not Dr. Patterson, someone independent. Get a full cognitive evaluation. Document that your brain is functioning normally." "Helen will know." "She's going to know everything eventually. The question is when and how. Right now, she thinks she's in control. Let her keep thinking that while we build a case." "What case?" "Fraud, identity theft, possibly elder abuse, though at your age that's a stretch. Forgery for sure if we can prove those signatures are fake." He started writing. "We'll need a handwriting expert, someone who can testify that the signatures were forged or signed under duress. And we need to document everything from here forward. Every conversation, every financial transaction, every time she or your children try to manipulate the narrative." My stomach turned. "You're talking about treating my family like criminals." "I'm talking about treating people who are stealing from you like what they are, criminals." Keller met my eyes. "I get that this is hard, but you need to decide right now. Do you want to save your marriage or save yourself? Because I don't think you can do both." The room got quiet. Danny looked out the window. Keller waited. "Save myself," I said. "Good. Then here's what we do." He laid out a plan. It was methodical, careful, and completely ruthless. Document everything, record conversations where legal, build a timeline, hire a forensic accountant to trace the money, get the cognitive evaluation. Most importantly, don't confront Helen until we had enough evidence to bury her in court. "How long will this take?" I asked. "Months, maybe longer. These cases move slowly." "I don't have months. She's already filed the documents. For all I know, she's planning to have me declared incompetent next week." "Then we accelerate. But you can't give her any reason to move faster. Go home. Play along. Act like you believe her story about your confusion. Let her think she's winning." "I'm not a good liar." "You better learn fast. Because if she figures out what you're doing, she'll shut you out completely. Move the money. Change the locks. File for divorce or conservatorship. You'll be fighting from a position of total weakness." I thought about Helen's face that morning. The calculation when the fake inspector turned out to be fake. She was already suspicious. If I went home and suddenly played the compliant patient, she'd know something had changed. "I need another option," I said. "Something that doesn't require months of pretending." "There isn't one, not legally." "Then maybe I need to stop thinking legally." Keller raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "She built this using paperwork and manipulation. Maybe I tear it down the same way." "Be very careful what you're suggesting." I'm not suggesting anything illegal. I'm suggesting I play the game better than she does. Keller studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. All right, let's talk dirty tactics. Mills called at 7 a.m. I was in the bathroom, the only place in the house I could have a private conversation. Your wife met with 2 people yesterday, the lawyer you know about, and a woman named Patricia Graves. Recognize the name? No. She's a geriatric care specialist, works with families transitioning elderly relatives into managed care. I'm 49. Doesn't matter. Early onset dementia, cognitive decline, psychiatric issues. She handles those too. Your wife is building a case for managed care. Conservatorship is next. My hand tightened on the phone. How long do I have? She's being thorough. Probably another 2 weeks before she files. Maybe 3. She wants the medical documentation airtight. That's why she's pushing the psychiatric evaluation. Can you stop her? I can't do anything. I'm a PI, not a lawyer, but I can get you leverage. He paused. I need access to your house. Specifically, I need to see where she keeps important documents. Office, bedroom, anywhere she might have originals. You want me to let you break into my house? I want you to let me in while she's gone. 10 minutes. That's all I need. I'll photograph everything and get out. If she finds out, she won't. I'm good at this. But it has to be soon, before she moves everything to a lawyer's office or safe deposit box. I thought about Helen's filing system, her careful organization. She kept everything important in the office filing cabinet. Top drawer, locked. I'd never questioned it before. Now I wondered what else was in there. She has garden club Thursday afternoon, 2 to 5. Text me when she leaves. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't be at the house when I arrive. Give yourself an alibi. He hung up. I flushed the toilet and washed my hands and looked at my reflection. I looked older, thinner, like the illness had carved away everything soft and left only angles. Helen knocked on the door. Breakfast is ready. Be right there. Eggs and toast. She'd made enough for an army. I sat down and ate mechanically while she talked about her day. Garden club, then grocery shopping, then dinner with Emma. You're invited too, she said. Emma specifically asked. I don't feel up to it. David, you need to stay social. Isolation isn't good for you. Neither is forcing myself to sit through dinner when I'm exhausted. She set down her fork. This is exactly what Dr. Patterson warned about. Withdrawal, resistance to normal activities. These are symptoms. Or I'm just tired. Or you're depressed, or experiencing cognitive decline. That's why we need the evaluation. She reached across and took my hand. Please, come to dinner, for Emma. She's worried about you. Emma who'd helped plan this. Emma who'd stood in the kitchen and talked about protecting the family. Emma who looked at me with pity instead of respect. Fine, I said. I'll come. Helen smiled. Good. We'll leave at 6. She cleared the dishes. I went to the office and called Danny. Need a favor. Thursday afternoon. Pick me up at the house around 2:30. Tell Helen I asked you to take me to the lumber yard. I need to check prices for the Bennett job. What's really happening? Better if you don't know? He was quiet for a moment. Be careful? Too late for that. I spent the rest of the day pretending to rest. Took the medication Helen gave me. Let it blur the edges. Smiled when she checked on me. Played the role of confused, compliant patient. Inside, I was counting hours. Thursday came slowly. Helen left at 1:30 for garden club. I watched her car disappear down the street. Then I texted Mills. She's gone. Danny showed up at 2:15. We drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away and sat in the parking lot. My phone buzzed at 2:40. I'm in. Give me 10. We waited. Danny bought coffee we didn't drink. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, at 2:50, Mills texted again. Done. Got what I needed. Get home in 20. Make it look normal. Danny drove me back at 3:10. The house looked exactly like we'd left it. Nothing disturbed. Mills was good. I went to the office. Everything looked normal. The filing cabinet was still locked. No signs of forced entry. But when I pulled out my phone, there were photos. Dozens of them. Every document in Helen's secret files, tax returns showing income I didn't know about, bank statements for accounts in her name only, emails between her and Eric discussing asset protection strategies, a timeline for the conservatorship filing, notes about my behavior, conversations she'd recorded on her phone, and at the bottom of the pile, a draft letter to the court, requesting emergency conservatorship based on my declining mental state, citing the pneumonia, the confusion, the paranoid behavior, the medication, every piece of evidence she'd been building for months. Dated for next Friday. 8 days away. I sat in the office and felt something inside me go quiet. Not angry, not scared, just cold. Helen came home at 5:15. I was in the living room watching television. She kissed my cheek. "How was your afternoon?" "Fine. Danny took me to the lumber yard. Got some prices." "That's good. You're staying active." She set down her purse. "I'm going to get ready for dinner. We need to leave by 6. I showered and changed into clean clothes. Looked at my reflection. The medication made my pupils slightly dilated. Made me look present, but not quite focused. Perfect for Helen's narrative. Emma lived in a condo complex downtown. 10th floor, corner unit with a view of the river. Helen had co-signed the mortgage. I'd provided the down payment. Our daughter's first step toward independence, funded by parents who wanted her to succeed. She opened the door with a hug. "Dad, you look better." Getting there. The condo was exactly what I'd expected. Clean, modern, slightly impersonal, like a hotel room someone had tried to make homey. Emma had never been good at creating warmth. That was Helen's gift. Ryan was already there. He stood by the window with a beer, looking at his phone. Didn't look up when we came in. "Family dinner," Emma said brightly. "I made lasagna. Well, I bought it from Antonelli's, but same thing." We sat around her dining table, the 4 of us, like a normal family having a normal dinner. Except nothing was normal, and we all knew it. "How are you feeling, Dad?" Ryan asked. "Fine." "Mom says you've been having memory issues." "Mom says a lot of things." Helen touched my arm. "David." "What?" "It's true. You've been telling everyone I'm confused, forgetful, having paranoid episodes. Maybe we should talk about what you've actually observed versus what you're worried about." The table went quiet. Emma looked at her plate. Ryan stared at me with Helen's eyes. Cold calculation. "We're worried because you're not acting like yourself," Ryan said. "You're defensive, secretive. You ran across town chasing a fake inspector. That's not normal dad behavior." Someone called pretending to be Danny. That's not paranoia. "Language," Helen said. "Why? Are we pretending this is a normal dinner? Are we pretending you're not all planning something?" Emma stood up. "Maybe we should eat." "Sit down, Emma." I kept my eyes on Helen. Tell them about the conservatorship petition, the one you are filing next Friday." Helen's face went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Eric's office, 2 hours last week. Patricia Graves, geriatric care specialist. Ring any bells?" "You're following me now? Is that what this is?" "Someone needs to keep track of the truth. Since you've been pretty flexible with it lately," Ryan stood up. "Dad, you need to calm down." "Why? Because watching your father figure out he's being betrayed makes you uncomfortable?" "No one's betraying anyone." Helen's voice had steel in it now. "We're trying to help you. You're sick. You're confused. You need care. That's not betrayal. That's love." "Love." I laughed. It sounded wrong even to me. "Is that what you call forging my signature on property transfers? Is that what you call draining $40,000 from our accounts? Is that love, Helen?" "I didn't forge anything. You signed those documents. You just don't remember." I was in Milwaukee on September 15th, 600 miles away. But somehow I signed property transfers here in town. You want to explain that? She didn't answer. Just looked at Ryan. He pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Calling Dr. Patterson. You're having a psychotic episode. You need medical intervention." "I'm having a moment of clarity. Big difference." I didn't sleep. Just lay on the couch and watch the ceiling until dawn. Helen didn't check on me. Maybe she was done pretending to care. Maybe she was just tired. At 5:30, I got up and left the house. Helen was still in bed. I didn't leave a note. Mills was waiting at the coffee shop. He had a laptop and a folder thick with documents. We sat in the corner booth where no one could overhear. "Show me what you've got," he said. I pulled up the photos from Helen's files. The conservatorship petition, the bank records, the emails with Eric, the timeline. Mills went through everything methodically. "This is good, but it's not enough. A judge could see this as a wife managing a sick husband's affairs. Everything she did has a legitimate explanation if she frames it right. So what do we need? We need proof she lied, not just acted without your knowledge. We need her on record saying something demonstrably false, something we can fact-check and prove she fabricated." "Like what?" "Like her statement that you signed those documents when you were homesick. We prove you weren't home. We show you were somewhere else with witnesses. That makes her a liar. And if she lied about that, what else did she lie about? I was in Milwaukee September 15th. I have hotel receipts, photos, text messages. Good, that's one signature. What about the others? I went through the dates. September 22nd, I'd been home but bedridden. October 1st, I'd been in the hospital. Hard to prove I didn't sign something while unconscious. September 22nd is useless, Mills said. You were home. Even if you don't remember signing, a lawyer could argue the fever made you forget. But October 1st, he tapped the document. You were admitted to the hospital at what time? Around 3 p.m. And these documents are notarized. The notary stamp shows, he pulled out a magnifying glass, 2:45 p.m., same day. So? So you were already in the hospital when these were supposedly notarized. Notaries require you to be present, they verify ID, watch you sign. If you were in a hospital bed, you couldn't have been at Eric's office. Unless he came to the hospital. Did he? I don't remember. I was pretty out of it. We checked the hospital visitor logs. If Eric wasn't there, then the notarization is fraudulent. That's a crime. That proves forgery. That destroys Helen's entire story. I felt something shift inside me. Not hope exactly, but possibility. How do we get the visitor logs? I've got contacts at Mercy General. Give me until noon. He closed his laptop and stood up. In the meantime, you need to stay calm. Don't confront Helen. Don't do anything that makes you look unstable. We're building a case. Let me build it. I've got 3 days. I know. I'll call you by 1 p.m. He left. I sat in the booth and drank coffee that had gone cold. My phone buzzed. Text from Helen. Where are you? Couldn't sleep. Went for a drive. Come home. We need to talk. I'll be there in an hour. I deleted the text with Mills, cleared my call history. If Helen checked my phone, which she probably would, I wanted clean records. I drove around for 45 minutes. Let her worry. Then I went home. She was waiting in the kitchen, still in her robe, coffee mug in hand. She looked tired. Good. We need to discuss what happens next, she said. You're filing Monday, you told me last night. I'm filing because I have to, because you're not safe, because you're not capable of managing your own affairs. She set down the mug. But it doesn't have to be ugly. You can cooperate. Make this easier for everyone. How would I do that? Stop fighting. Stop making accusations. Accept that you need help. I'll file the petition. The court will appoint me conservator. You'll get the care you need. Our finances will be protected. The kids will be secure. Everyone wins. Except me. You win too. You just can't see it right now because you're sick. I looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 23 years. This stranger wearing her face. What if I don't cooperate? Then it gets ugly. I submit the ER report, the psychiatric evaluations, the documentation of your confusion and paranoid behavior. I testify about your declining state. Ryan and Emma testify. Your own lawyer testifies. And you end up in conservatorship anyway, but with everyone knowing you fought it, with everyone seeing you as the problem. That's quite a threat. It's not a threat. It's reality. She stood up. You have 3 days to decide. Fight and lose publicly, or cooperate and keep your dignity. She went upstairs. I heard the shower start. My phone buzzed. Mills. Got something? Can you meet in 30? Where? That park by the river, east entrance. I'll be in a gray sedan. I texted back yes and left the house before Helen could ask questions. Mills was parked under a tree. I got in the passenger seat. He handed me a folder. Mercy General visitor logs for October 1st. Every person who came to the 4th floor that day. Times. ID checks. Everything. I flipped through the pages. Found my name. Room 4187. Visitors listed. Helen Brenner. Emma Brenner. Ryan Brenner. No Eric Moss. He wasn't there, Mills said. Eric never came to the hospital, which means the notarization at 2:45 p.m. is impossible. You were sedated in a hospital room. He was in his office. Someone forged those documents. This proves it? This plus the Milwaukee alibi proves at least 2 signatures are fraudulent. That's enough. That's your case. I stared at the pages. Evidence. Real, documentable evidence that Helen had lied. What do I do with this? Monday morning, we file an emergency motion to block the conservatorship petition. We submit this evidence. We request a full hearing. We put Helen on the stand and make her explain how you signed documents when you were physically incapable of doing so. She'll have an explanation. She'll have a lie, and we'll tear it apart. Keller's ready to file as soon as you give the word. I looked at the visitor logs. at my family's names listed there. Helen, Emma, Ryan, all visiting their sick father, all part of the plan. File it, I said. Mills nodded. Keller needs you in his office Monday morning, 8 a.m. We'll walk the motion over to the courthouse together. After that, it's a waiting game. Judge will schedule a hearing, probably within a week. And until then? Until then, you act normal. Don't let Helen know you're planning anything. She'll try to accelerate if she suspects. Just be the cooperative patient. Let her think she's won. I'm not good at lying. You better learn fast. I got out of the car and watched him drive away. Then I sat on a park bench and looked at the river. Brown water flowing steadily towards somewhere else, taking everything with it. In 3 days, my life would change completely. Either I'd stop Helen or she'd bury me. There was no middle ground anymore. I went home. Helen was in the office. Door closed. I could hear her voice through the wall, talking to someone. Eric, probably, or Patricia Graves. Planning the final steps. I went upstairs and lay on the bed. Took the medication she'd left on the nightstand. Let it blur me. Make me compliant. One more weekend of pretending, then the war started for real. Helen made dinner. We ate in silence. She tried to make conversation. I gave short answers. She eventually stopped trying. Ryan called. He wanted to come over. Talk about what happened Thursday night. Helen told him to come by tomorrow, family meeting. We needed to all be on the same page. I listened and said nothing. That night, Helen tried to reach for me in bed. Just a hand on my arm. Old habit. Reflex. I pulled away. She went still, then rolled over and faced the wall. We lay like that until morning. 2 people in one bed, miles apart. Saturday, Ryan came over at noon. Emma arrived 20 minutes later. They sat in the living room like an intervention. Helen in the chair, kids on the couch, me in the corner. We want to talk about what's happening, Ryan said. About the conservatorship. About why it's necessary. Go ahead, talk. Dad, you're sick. Not just physically, mentally. You're not thinking clearly. You're making accusations that don't make sense. You need help. What accusations don't make sense? All of them. Mom isn't stealing from you. She's managing things while you recover. That's what partners do. Partners don't forge signatures. She didn't forge anything. Emma's voice cracked. Why can't you understand that? You signed those documents. You just don't remember. I was in Milwaukee when I supposedly signed property transfers. How does that work? Ryan exchanged looks with Helen. Dad, you're confused about the timeline. The medication is affecting your memory. You weren't in Milwaukee that week. Yes, I was. September 15th through 17th? I have hotel receipts. Show me. I pulled out my phone. Found the hotel confirmation. September 15th, 17. The Grayson Hotel, Milwaukee. Ryan looked at it, then at Helen. Something passed between them. This doesn't prove anything, he said. Could be an old reservation. Could be from a different trip. Your memory is scrambled. Call the hotel. Verify I was there those dates. Dad, call them. Right now. I'll give you the confirmation number. Helen stood up. This is exactly the problem. You're so fixated on being right that you can't see what's happening. You're paranoid, obsessive. These are symptoms. We're trying to help you. Then help me understand why there's a notarized signature from me on documents dated October 1st, when I was unconscious in a hospital. How did that happen? The room went quiet. Emma looked confused. Ryan looked at Helen. Eric came to the hospital, Helen said smoothly. He brought the documents there. You were awake enough to sign. Then the medication made you forget. The visitor logs don't show him there. How would you know what the visitor logs show? Because I checked. Helen's face changed. Not much. Just a tightening around the eyes. You went to the hospital and requested visitor logs? When? Does it matter? It matters because it shows how deep your paranoia goes. You're investigating me, following me, checking records. That's not normal behavior, David. Neither is forgery. Ryan stood up. Okay, this isn't productive. Dad, you need to stop. These accusations are hurting everyone. Mom is trying to help you, we all are. But you have to meet us halfway. By surrendering control of my life? By accepting that you need help. That's all. I looked at my son, at my daughter, at my wife. They believed what they were saying, or they were committed to the lie. Either way, I was outnumbered. Get out, I said. Dad, get out of my house, all of you. Emma started crying. Ryan put his arm around her. Helen just looked at me with something like pity. We'll go, Helen said. But we're moving forward with the petition. Monday morning. I wanted to give you a chance to cooperate. You've made your choice?" They left. Emma and Ryan through the front door. Helen upstairs to pack a bag. She came down 20 minutes later with a suitcase. "I'm staying at Emma's for the weekend. Give you space. Give all of us space. But Monday, this ends, one way or another." She walked out. I heard her car start, listened to it fade down the street. Then I sat in the empty house and felt the silence press down. This was it, the moment where everything changed, where I either fought or gave up. I pulled out my phone and called Keller. "Monday, 8 a.m., I'll be there. File everything." "You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back." "I'm sure." I hung up and looked around the house. My house. The one I'd paid for, the one I'd filled with a family that was now actively trying to destroy me. On Monday, I'd fight back. But tonight, I'd just sit here and accept that the man I used to be was gone. What was left was something harder and colder, capable of whatever came next. I went to the office and pulled out the folder of documents Mills had copied, spread them across the desk, evidence of betrayal, proof of theft, ammunition. Then I started planning. Not just defense, offense. Helen wanted war. She was about to get it.